Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this GW2 PvP Beginner's Guide. This is going to be a series of videos starting all the way back at the character creation and showing new players everything they need to know to find their way around GW2 PvP. Therefore, if you have any experience whatsoever, you might want to skip the first couple of videos. Later on in the series we're going to get into a little bit more advanced stuff, but I want to give new players the opportunity to follow this guide and get a step-by-step introduction they can follow and hopefully have an easier time getting started. In the course of this series I hope to cover things like a tour through the Heart of the Mist, map explanations, what the PvP scene itself has to offer, the specific vocab used in PvP, so for example you can follow shoutcast, and hopefully much more. If you want to know what GW2 PvP is all about, to maybe see whether or not you'd even find any interest in it before embarking on the journey to learn all about it, you can click the annotation in the upper right corner, which will bring you to a video of mine where I give a brief overview of what GW2 PvP is. As I've mentioned already, I want to start all the way back at the character creation. So let's get to it. The character creation itself is pretty much entirely PvE focused. The only thing you are choosing at this point which will have any effect on your PvP gameplay is the class or the profession. Choosing this very much depends on the role you want to cover in a PvP match, but also your preference in terms of playstyle. Something that might have an effect too is the race you're choosing. With that I don't mean abilities, stats or what class you can play, but simply the size of the race. Asuras are especially numerous in PvP, which of course might have something to do with them just being an awesome race. Another point though is that in GW2 you rely very much on the specific animation of certain spells, to know which ones you want to try to evade or interrupt, etc. And with Asuras some of the animations are very subtle, and therefore harder to identify for your enemy than it would be with, for example, a Norn. But this only really starts to have any effect in higher rating areas, so for the time being you should just choose whichever race you prefer. After choosing the class, a race and how you want your character to look, you'll have a couple of choices concerning the story of your character, which only affects the PvE part of the game. Once you're done with the character creation, there is only one thing left for you to do until you can go into the PvP part of the game, which is a very short, let's call it a tutorial of sorts. Depending on which race you've chosen, it will be a different one, but they all take about 5 minutes and aren't particularly difficult. There is an unofficial and quite possibly not really legitimate workaround to skip the tutorial, but it requires the assistance of a friend who has already done it and takes almost the same amount of time, so you might as well just go ahead and do it the normal way. When you're done with the tutorial, you can finally go into the PvP part of the game. For that you need to click on the crossed swords icon in the upper left corner, which opens up the PvP window. There is no default key binding for it, but you are able to bind a key to it manually later on. In the PvP window you'll just click on the button Join Heart of the Mist, and that brings you to the PvP hub area of GW2. If you enter the Heart of the Mist for the first time, you'll have another tutorial, but this one is PvP related. You'll have 3 different tasks you can do, but you don't have to do them. One is about resurrecting an ally who is in downstate, one about finishing an enemy, and one about capturing a point. They aren't really that brilliant to be honest, and I will cover all of this in more detail in later episodes, but just to get a first feel for it you should probably do them. Once you've done that or skipped it, you have to walk through to the other end of the map and talk to the NPC next to the portal. And now you're in the proper Heart of the Mist, the PvP hub area. Something you might have noticed if you had a look at your HP bar, for example, is that you have been bumped up to level 80. This means you don't have to first level your character to max level in order to participate in PvP. As a little side note, the bar at the bottom of your screen no longer shows the level of your character, but rather your PvP rank point progress. What these points mean will be explained at a later point, but don't worry, they aren't really important. So, while in PvP you are max level, and you have access to almost all of the traits and items that change your stats. I'm saying almost because they added a couple of traits and abilities which you have to unlock first. You can unlock them fairly quickly, and they are only a very small part of the entire equipment and ability pool you have at your disposal. That means they aren't really essential for most playstyles to work, so that you're pretty much on an equal playing field with everybody else. And the only thing making a difference is the skill of the player. And this is where I'll leave you for the first video. To get to the next one, in which I will cover the basics of the PvP UI, you can click on the annotation in the upper right corner. If you have any questions or suggestions for stuff I should cover in the course of this guide series, please let me know in the comments. I have already put together a plan for what I'm going to cover in the next couple of episodes, so I might already have something planned, or it could take a while until I get to any suggestions. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.